Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hello and welcome as the RacingLab Summer GT3 Cup arrives here at Apex Racing TV. We're going to be taking in numerous circuits from Europe and North America across the next 5 rounds, and kickstarting things here today in the glorious sunshine of Italy at the absolutely iconic, one of the all-time classic circuits in road racing, Monza. Before we head off to the Red Bull Ring, Sebring, back to Europe for Imola, and before we round out the season at Daytona. Going to be great racing. It's going to be an absolute classic, I'm sure, yet again. I'm Tim Cox. We've got Sam Fitzpatrick in the production booth for right now. As always, for the rest of the season, I'm going to be joined by Seb Boscher Williams. Seb, welcome along. Monza, high speed, fast, furious, of course, with those tight chicanes as well, providing big braking zones, plenty of overtaking opportunities around here. What's not to love about Monza?
I think turn one, I think the drivers will agree, but I mean, yeah, Monza, such a great track. Good evening to everybody at home tuning in for what I'm sure is going to be an absolutely amazing GT3 race here at Monza. And you hit the nail on the head, really, Tim. It is such a good track for overtaking. It's got a perfect mix between long straights, but challenging corners. You know, the parabolica, the final corner. It's so tricky to get the car straightened out and without sort of getting into the traction control that's going to ruin your run down the straight. So yeah, it's a really difficult circuit. It's deceptively difficult, but it's going to provide such great racing. And yeah, but I mean, it's sort of a legend, isn't it, in the sim racing world, Tim? Turn one, how dangerous it can be. And the drivers tonight, their main objective has got to be survive turn one and just sort of see where they can see sort of where the race can take them, because it's so easy to lose your race at turn one at Monza.
Well, I think it's not even just the sim world, really, is it, Seb? To be fair, there's seen numerous instances across the years at turn one with all different types of cars. Obviously, GT3s that we're experiencing here today. You can just see Steinbraten there in the brand new iRacing, the Mercedes GT AMG Evo. What a glorious car that is. Handle spectacular. Controversially, there, I'm running the 911 number and not in a Porsche. So that one for you there. We do have one Porsche in the field being piloted by Berven of Team Vikings, and the driver's just heading out into qualifying now. They've got 10 minutes to complete 4 laps. It's going to be a bit of a squeeze to squeeze them in around here, of course. Monza has a bit more of a longer track time compared to, say, Red Bull Ring, which we'll be visiting in about a month's time on the 20th of July. It's going to be incredibly close around there, I am sure, and plenty of chance to get your qualifying laps in around there. And then just to round out the format for the whole season, we're going to be having 1 hour long races. Well, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of thrills, action, drama, and excitement in absolute bootfuls as Steinbraten heading out onto his first flying lap there. Of course, a nice long out lap. The track here at the Autodrome Nacional Monza, some 5.8 kilometers long. Now, if you're on the imperial inclination, that's 3.5 miles. As he heads through Curva Grande there, that's Helvik in the BMW M4 GT3. Another car that we got got this nice and early into iRacing. It arrived, before it even made its real-life full racing debut. And just through the first of the Lesmos, really tight, tricky part where it's easy to miss your apex, and you've got to really be committed to the second Lesmo, where any slight hesitation in the throttle, get a little bit loose, and that's going to really impede your top speed on the run down to Ascari, where you're going to see, I'm sure, a few moves are being made, especially in the early stages of the race, taking plenty of the curves. Of course, the BMW M4 is notorious for its ability to take the curves. You can be really aggressive across them, and Helvik just demonstrating that in great fashion before we head down to, well, some people call it Parabolica. I'm going to go with that one. It's no longer named that, as I'm sure Seb's going to tell us all about shortly and correct me, but all of the purists that still refer it as Parabolica as we come across the line. He's going to be the first driver to set a benchmark, and there we go, a 1:46.8. Roang also setting a time in the Mercedes, a 1:47 dead. So 2 tenths slower. Steinbraten there just gets to the top of the timing sheets for Mercedes. A 1:46.2, a great time. There's Raven in the lone McLaren also setting a time, but well off the pace on that initial lap, and maybe looking just to build into qualifying here, Seb.
I think that's certainly the case, Tim. Of course, you know, Monza, it did recently get an upgrade or an update even, where, you know, the off-tracks was sort of slightly relaxed, but it's still quite an issue around here. Certainly exiting out of Lesmo too. So I think it is a case of just building yourself up and, you know, making sure that you can get the optimal lap in. It's always a good practice to get a banker lap in, or even, you know, 2 or 3, as you've got the luxury here today with the 4 laps that you're allotted rather than the standard 2 that you normally get in an iRacing official. So yeah, I think we're just seeing banker lap sort of happening. Mervang down in 4th place, 7 tenths off Steinbraten. Mervang was actually our leader in practice, so he's got way more pace than what he's showing at the moment. So I think he did just go for a little bit of a banker lap, and you see as we head through the Ascari chicane, starting to touch those curbs and sort of make use of them. They do allow you to turn in the car, and if you hit them just right, it can give you so much lap time. But as you were saying, the BMW is inclined to ride them, but also you can get damage from them, and the BMW is one of the most prone cars to getting that sort of front end splitter damage. So it's a really sort of double-edged sword. You can gain so much time, but if you hit them in the wrong way, you're going to be losing so much lap time through damage. So yeah, I think we're going to see the drivers attack the curbs in the qualifying session, but I'd be surprised if we see them using them in the race every single lap.
You say about those curbs, Seb. I mean, had the absolute luxury of being able to attend to the Le Mans 24 Hours this year, and got a bit up close and personal with the sausage curbs during when the track was open, and we were able to have a bit of a walk around there at the Ford chicane. And I'll tell you what, they are a lot bigger and they are a lot harder than what they look in the sim. They look nice and, you know, a little bit on the cushier side and not too aggressive. You can really understand once you've seen them up close and personal in real life just why they are so treacherous to go anywhere near, and they can really unsettle the car and also, like you say, inflict damage on your car, which is the last thing you're going to be wanting around here with such a high-speed circuit that Monza is just notorious for. As we're seeing Royce here come across the line, and it's a 1:54.9, so no improvement for him there, and he's having a bit of a look. And after initial pace setting, nobody really going quicker on their second lap, Seb.
No, I think we're sort of seeing the degradation of the tyres. It's quite as simple as that. You always sort of get the peak performance of the tyres on your opening lap. It's just where the pressures and the sort of the state of the tyres itself are in sort of the best condition, and from then on it sort of just starts to degrade. And that's why we see Isaacson actually, he escaped to the pits, or he jumped to the pits right after his second qualifying lap. So he knew that he wanted a new set of tyres. He wanted, you know, just to reset that degradation in the tyre wear and just get the best out of his car again. And I'm surprised that many other drivers aren't considering that. You know, you do have enough time to set one flying lap, escape to the pits, do an out lap, and then go for one more flying lap. So yeah, I think Isaacson's got a great shot of taking that pole position, 1/10 off Steinbraten at the moment. We'll have to see how that develops. We're right on board with Meyer Vang, not able to find the pace that he was setting in practice, Tim, and I wonder if it is, you know, as I was talking about with the tyres, he didn't manage to get the perfect opening lap, you know, maybe didn't push as much as he could have done, and now the tyres are just simply falling away from him. But somebody whose tyres aren't falling away is Steinbraten at the moment. Purple in sector 2, 3 and 4 going to come across the line. He's going to cut really close to the inside. We'll see many drivers doing that in practice, in qualifying, sorry. And a 1:45.8, and that's a huge marker for all of the drivers now. The first driver into the 1:45s, and can Isaacson respond? And at the moment, Tim, doesn't look like he's got the pace to topple Steinbraten at the moment.
Steinbraten going incredible 4 attempts quicker on that second lap. Royce just moving up a place ahead of Ruud there with a 1:48.8, and we're going to see any improvements in these latter stages. There is Nils-Erik Isaacson. He's coming around to complete what will be his out lap, I believe. And let's see what he can set in terms of pace. Those fresh tyres on board. So there is a 146.38, which is, I tell you what, actually that was I believe that was their flying lap there. So that was actually 0.02 of a second slower than his previous best. Well, there's consistency there for you, but not enough to close that gap up to Steinbratton and almost cement that second place for him, because Helvig is some 4 tenths slow as Ruud improves in the Ferrari. It's the Ferrari's home race. Well, got 2 bites of the apple here. Obviously, we're visiting Imola later in the season, and himself up to 6 as Maivang there. Up into 3rd, Helvig improves his lap time like this Brabant, but not enough to see themselves promoted. But just look at how close it is between Maivang and Helvig on their final laps. 600ths of a second to be precise. The difference between those two on the second row as Anderson improves to go 6th, displacing Ruud there in the Ferrari. But I tell you what, the Mercedes is definitely looking like the OP car here, Seb, occupying the top 3, as well as Anderson in 6th place as well, Royce in 10th.
Yeah, the Mercedes has been super strong since it was introduced in the last patch. It's just the perfect all-rounder, but great job by Helvig in the BMW, the first of our non-Mercedes car, sticking it in 4th place. Watch out for him, because I think the BMW is going to have a slightly different tyre wear characteristic, and you might be able to come through the field in the latter stages of the race.
So let's just run you through your grid here today for the first round at Monza of the RacingLab Summer GT3 Cup. Steinbratton takes the first pole position of the season, with Nils Erik Isaacson joining him on the front row. Maivang and Helvig are on the second row, with the McLaren of Bevan and Matsborg Anderson in another of the Mercedes on the 3rd row of the grid. Ruud and Bevan, they are on the 4th row, with Moldakiv and Royce running at your top 10 and the 5th row of the grid. And to round out the field, Stein Loxon there in the Audi in 11th place for Team Happy Life Factory. What a lovely name. You can't really get aggressive about that one at all. So we just wait for the drivers to head across the grid, and then we will be away racing for the first time this season at Monza. And wow, what a season it is due to be. You see the Mercedes there on the front row, locked out for them. In fact, the top 3 with Maivang as well in 3rd. You might be able to just catch him tucked away there. A pretty change of camera angle to demonstrate that one. There is Maivang in the 889 machine. And what sort of start can he make? As Seb was mentioning earlier, the fastest driver during practice. He'll be looking to displace Steinbratton and Isaacson in front of him as we head about for the traditional GT style rolling starts behind the, well, what do you say, safety truck today? Not the usual Porsche 911 safety car that we see so often get road racing going with. And Seb, how would you play this one if you were one of the drivers?
It's it's so difficult to start with a rolling start. You know, many of these drivers don't. You know, in iRacing, you tend to get a lot of standing starts, not many rolling starts, and you have to really surprise your opponent. And I always feel like it's such a disadvantage to start in second, because you don't really have a sight to the leader. You can't see when he decides to go, and you really need to be sort of as far alongside him as possible to gain the advantage. So, yeah, I think if you are Steinbratton, you need to sort of just catch everybody off guard, and that's either by going super early or just waiting a little bit longer. But that's the goal. We've got such a long run down to turn 1. He's going to be vulnerable. Everybody's going to be vulnerable in the slipstream, so it's really up to Steinbratton, and it looks like he has gone super early, Tim.
Yeah, so let's get ready to go racing for the first time this season. Weaving there from Steinbratton, trying to inject some temperature into the tyres at the last possible moment. But look at the BMW. Helvig already up 1 place and tucks it right behind Isaacson as we come hard onto the brakes for the first time. And it's, oh no, we've had contact in the midfield. Ruud involved, oh no, and the Ferrari there coming to a standstill. And wow, numerous cars involved there. Royce, Mordecai, and Matsborg Anderson all caught up in that opening lap, and 4 cars have emerged out the other side. It's the 3 Mercedes of Steinbarten, Isaacson and Meyervang and Helvig in the BMW with them as a bit of chopping and changing there further down the field. Bevan, you have to having a good start, drop 5 places as all the Ferrari runs in a bit too deep there. That was rude. As we head down to the Lesmos now. First of the 2 of them there. Bit of a tricky corner, you have to be a bit patient on the loud pedal. You really open up the car, use as much of that runoff there as possible, get out onto the AstroTurf, and likewise on the exit of the second Lesmo, before we then tuck up behind one another on the race down to Ascari through the Curva del Seraggio, underneath the bridge and well, underneath the oval section there. It's not used anymore. It's one of the former glories is here come our top 4. You can see the clear daylight that they have amassed already. Some 5.5 seconds on this opening lap, obviously largely down to that contact down at turn 1, and you saw the BMW of Helvig there just running it a bit wide out of Parabolica, and here comes the slipstream. And at the end of the lap 1, Steinbarten leads from Isaacson, Meyervang, Helvig, Raven in 5th, Royce, Loxon, Anderson, Berven, Rude, as all Anderson into the pits, well, was in 10th, but Mordecai promoted up into 10th now. And is that going to be terminal for Anderson? Well, we'll keep you up to date with where he has that in the pits, but our top 2 starting to just pull away ever so slightly, Sled, but at 8/10 of a second, the gap between Isaacson and Meyervang. Still within, they're going to pick up a little bit of toe. Well, Meyervang is, isn't he?
He certainly is. The toe is going to be a little bit more powerful here than other circuits, just from the fact that the straights are so long. But it does seem like we've got a leading pair, followed by our battle for 3rd and 4th. Isaacson hot on the heels of Steinbarten. Talking about Anderson coming into the pits, they do have one fast repair in this race, so I come into the pits and let's have a look. This is Mordecai. What's going to happen to him? This is a BMW driver, the number 33, and I think this is what happened on lap 1, and he just broke too late, Tim, tried to avoid an innocent bystander, the McLaren and the Mercedes, and Mordecai almost got away sort of scot-free from that after simply just outbraking himself. But to come to Mordecai's defence, it's so easy just to get in too deep into turn 1 at Monza. You arrive with so much pace, everything's happening, and you can't see your ever crucial brake markers, so it's an easy mistake to make. It's just unfortunate that it's impacted other drivers and their races.
Well, that is part of the issue, isn't it, with the rolling start, Seb? We'll talk about that very, very shortly, but seeing Mordecai there just getting past Revan in the McLaren. He's going to tuck back in behind while bruised and battered front end of that BMW M4 GT3. It's known if it's a beaver teeth look that BMW have adopted in their latest generation and their design philosophy across all their cars. But, well, that needs a hefty trip to the orthodontist, that one, to try and sort out that smile and front grille that's going on there with those teeth. But it's really, really competitive between these 4. This group being led by Loxon in the Audi, already up 4 places due to that turn 1 incident. We've got the Ferrari of Rude, Mordecai, who was mentioned in the BMW, and then Bevan, who we're currently on board with right now in the McLaren. A car not driven too much. He's going to have a bit of a look up the inside here, Seb, into Della Roggia, and really turning up the pressure right now on the BMW. And if you're Bevan, where would you look to make the move?
The issue that Berven's got at the moment is that they've both got damage. So the BMW, we saw it, and you were mentioning, Tim, that the damage that the BMW has to the front end. But if we catch a shot of Berven from the rear, he is also carrying some quite substantial damage from that contact earlier on. So I don't really think Berven's got too much of a straight line speed advantage. He looks to the inside to head towards the Ascari chicane. It's going to have to be super deep under brakes, but BMW kind of lets him go. They're side by side through the Ascari chicane. I think Berven's got that position. He certainly has. So just as I was saying, Tim, that he's sort of lacking a little bit of straight line speed, he proves me very wrong, and moves that McLaren up to 9th place. Moldekeev now having to see if he can make his way by as we head through the Alboreto curve, Tim, and you said that I'd correct you, and I mean, as much as I love it being called the Parabolica, it's now the Alboreto curve.
We've seen quite a few name changes of corners in, well, within the last 6 months to a year, of course. The bus stop chicane at Daytona has now become the Le Mans chicane. A lot of that being played a part of, let's just watching Moldekeev there, just having a bit of a look there. Into turn 1, Rettifilio. That's deciding against it there. Yeah, obviously Daytona renamed the bus stop chicane to the Le Mans chicane as part of the IMSA and World Endurance Championship coordination and not an amalgamation, but this is where they've started working together as a changed position here. That is Loxon in the Audi just dropping behind. Ooh, this is all of a sudden hotted up here. Steinbacher has really opened up a gap, and we've got Meyervang getting past Isaacson. It's going to be close between them. We've got the BMW of Harvig looking to be opportunistic and take the pair of them. Has to back out of it. Gets all over the curbs there. Nearly makes contact with Meyervang, but just manages to evade it and nearly picked up a 2-for-1 deal there into Ascari. Couldn't quite make it stick. Meyervang just really committed on the brakes and the point of turn-in. Managed to hold it right around the outside despite the advances of the BMW. We unwind and wind up and to slingshot ourselves out of the final corner. And it's almost like a carbon copy here. We've got two cars really close, Sutton and BMW acting as like a sweeper at the rear, trying to pick up the pieces and pick up a place. And well, yet again we've seen it. That's Moldekeev just getting past the Audi of Loxon. Oh, contact down at turn 1, Seb. It's all happening here.
Yeah, that looked very touring car-esque, a lot less like GT3 racing. Almost seemed like Helveg, the BMW, sorry, almost stopped on the apex. Let's have a little bit of a look at a replay. This is Isaacson we see in the back, so that's Moldekeev. Yeah, Moldekeev going for a move down the inside. Sorry, that's Helveg. I'm getting all confused. And then they all have this sort of disagreement on the apex. They all sort of end up coming out of the corner in the same position they entered. Get the sense that Helveg just realised that that was an opportunistic move and allowed Meyervang just to take his position and, you know, sort of the gentlemanly thing to do. But well, while they're squabbling over, you know, second, third and fourth, Steinbraten at the moment is absolutely rocketing away with this. The gap is now up to 5.1 seconds, so all going very well for the 911 Mercedes. And it's not a phrase I would thought I would have said anytime soon, Tim. I agree with you. If you're going to have 911 as your car number, you've got to at least be in a Porsche.
I completely and wholeheartedly agree with you on that one there, Seb. And Steinbraten really helped by not just the battle that the three cars behind him have been having previously, and then of course that turn 1 incident at Rettifilio just allowed him just to walk away practically from the group. I mean, it already opened up about 2.5 second advantage over them. That gap over Meyervang now up to 5.2, made that 5.3 seconds the advantage Mercedes Steinbraten has for now. As we're looking back from Berven in the McLaren, the Team Vikings driver is Moldekeev behind him of Simracing Norway. Half a second the gap, but watch that close up now. Wow, so watch that close up. Talk about watching things close up. The gap between second, third and fourth getting ever so close right now. 9/10 of a second is all that covers these three cars. You can practically throw the perennial blanket over the three of them.
Oh, is that very late under braking from the #1 BMW. And I think we're starting to see the different strength in each car playing out, and it certainly looks like that Mercedes has a little bit more top end speed to it. But I mean, Stefan Helveg is so confident under brakes, just almost braking like 10-50 meters later than the Mercedes around him. That's going to give him such an advantage into the heavy braking zones around the circuit. So watch out for the BMW under brake, maybe a little bit of a dive to the inside. We see Moldekeev and Loxon having a battle further down the field. But, you know, Isaacson here is, you know, it's really unfortunate for him. I think he made a mistake in Sector 2 a few laps ago to him, and that's why what sort of started off this whole sort of calamity between all three cars. Isaacson was about a second slower in Sector 2 a few laps ago, so he's clearly made a mistake, lost the time to Steinbraten, and sort of been brought back into this gaggle, and it's really where you don't want to be. Isaacson, you know, was comfortably in second place, gapping these two. He knows he's quicker, but he just simply can't get past them, especially if they're, you know, squabbling as they are at the moment. So Isaacson's really now got to play it long. Just think about the long game here. Don't get involved in any sort of silly accidents. Don't stick a nose where it isn't warranted. Just try and survive and just slowly pick his way through these drivers and get up to second place. But at the moment, I think that sort of that chance he had for the win is fading away with every lap.
It seems that way, indeed, and maybe these drivers are just maybe struggling to understand quite what's happening around them. And do you know what could really help them, said? STK Gaming. It's the most accurate live timing software available on iRacing, with showing you able to show timing towers, enhanced relative boxes, mini maps, and fuel calculators, as well as much more. You can also use it to stream to Twitch for the most complete overlay on iRacing, and also you can use it to broadcast your leagues and series, like we do for all of our leagues here and shows that we cover at Apex Racing TV, and also really handy for endurance multi-class events, and where you can utilize it to help adjust your team strategy on the fly. You can find out more by heading across to sdkgaming.com. Pick up a lovely subscription to that, and 12 minutes on the clock out of 1 hour. Steinbraten leads from Meyer-Vang. Helvig in third in the BMW, preventing that lockout of the podium for the Mercedes. Isaacson down 2 places, started on the front row, now down into fourth. Breven in the Porsche. Well, one of the Brevens, it's Torvsander. Hardly mentioned him, to be fair. He's had a really quiet race. He's locked in a pocket of space all by himself and leading a real lonely race, but I'm sure he'll take that with 2 hands. The Team Vikings driver. And then we've got Royce in 6th in another of the Mercedes. He's at 4 places as well, with Ruud in the lone Ferrari in 7th. Berven, Max Berven that is, of also Team Vikings in the McLaren. He's in 8th, with Loxon, who has already pitted in the Audi. Popped in for a quick splash and dash, I think. Bit early to be doing that, but it's nice. Then we've got Moldekeep in the BMW. He has retired the car on lap 5, and Mats Borg Andersen also retiring the car after that contact at Retafilio on the first lap, really putting pace with his race in the Mercedes, retiring on lap 1. But wow, look at Mervang and how loose and Larry that Mercedes was getting there out of the chicane. Della Roccia, to be precise. So we head through the 2 Lesmos, and Seb was saying earlier, you can watch how they just be so much more confident on the brakes and over the curbs, and it's really demonstrated from that camera we're just witnessing here as just see in the background there, Isaacson, just his lights just emerge from behind the BMW, having a bit of a look there, and this is where Helvig really comes into shine through Ascari, just so confident.
He completely is, and I'm sort of, you know, I hazarded to guess that he was just more confident under brakes, but his performance through the Ascari chicane sort of suggests that he does have a little bit more downforce, or maybe just a little bit more grip at the front end. He's super quick through the Ascari chicane, and that gives him a brilliant launch out the sort of the back straight through Parabolica. But now this is Mervang sort of territory. He's just able just to extend that gap with that, you know, grumbling V8 in the front of that Mercedes. But this time Helvig really on the back of the Mercedes. Now Belvik feels the need, or Mervang, sorry, feels the need to go defensive, let Helvig through, and it's a change at the top of our standings. Tim, second place now towards the BMW driver, Mervang in 3rd, and now Isaacson needs to pounce if he wants his position. He's caught Mervang a little bit off guard. Mervang, of course, just being passed. This is his perfect opportunity to make the move, as we see some more moves down the order. This is Roy's trying to, I think he's defending actually from Ruud, and Roy's on the last lap, Tim, has actually been off the track somewhere, and you can see that that Mercedes is carrying a little bit of damage to the front end, so Ruud has got a little bit of an advantage here. That Ferrari is no slouch in a straight line, and especially now that Mercedes is a little bit wounded, I think Ruud has got a really good opportunity to get past get past Ruud and up into 6th place.
We were talking earlier, obviously, about the different strengths and weaknesses, especially around the BMW and the Mercedes, obviously the battle we're seeing at the front end of the field. Let's talk about the Ferrari. As you mentioned, Seb, where it really comes into play is straight line speed. Just look at Alderud there, currently on board that Ferrari, and it is just such a weapon in a straight line. Such great top speed compared to the other GT3s, and this is where we really need to take advantage, especially on that run down to Respilio, turn 1. Just get a great launch out of Parabolica and hold on for dear life to slingshot him out and catapult himself past the Mercedes Royce.
He really needs that run through the Parabolica, as you rightly point out, Tim. It's such a crucial corner, and it's deceptively tricky as we ride on board with Ruud now. You have to pick up the apex as early as you can, but make sure to not really hit that inside curve too much, as it can unsettle the car. But the problem that Ruud's going to come into is that the Mercedes, while it's a little bit slower naturally on the straight line, you can run slightly lower rear wing angles with the Mercedes, which allows it to go quicker. So, you know, the Ferrari is naturally quicker in a straight line, but you can trim the Mercedes to be that little bit quicker, and that's proving very useful for Royce at the moment. Defends the inside line into turn 1 and 2, but wide on the exit!
Wow, caught the gravel there, Seb, and that just turned the car around right in to the path of Ruud, who was the innocent bystander, just a passenger in all that. And well, you can see in the background there, Royce trying to get the car turned around and pointing in the right direction. But just while that was happening, Max Verstappen in the McLaren said, "Thank you very much, I'll have a bit of that," and passes the pair of them while they were sorting themselves out up into 6th place. But well, we're talking about the straight line speed being great on the Ferrari, but that damage to the front left corner, I think it is, Seb, on the Ferrari of Ruud, not going to be helping him. And I think we're just going to see the Mercedes just catch the gravel. There you go, and that's what turned it around. And wow, straight into, apologies, to the front right of the Ferrari that made contact, and that's going to be hampering his straight line speed, isn't it?
Oh, certainly. It's going to be very, very damaging for that Ferrari, and you've almost taken away, you know, its greatest weapon against all of the other cars around this track. You know, we were just saying to him how important the straight line speed is for the Ferrari, and now that you don't have that, you only really have the negatives of the Ferrari, which are, you know, increased tyre wear over the other cars. Sometimes it's prone just to, you know, eating its tyres, heating its tyres quicker than the other GT3. So, yeah, Ruud's got a mountain to climb ahead of him. So, yeah, good luck to him, because that Ferrari can be really difficult to drive when you sort of get outside of its temperature window. And what I mean by that is just the tyres simply getting too hot and start almost cooking themselves. But yeah, Barron, as you rightly pointed out, Tim, in that McLaren, sort of silently lapping away, gaining places here and there, up 3 spots from where he started, doing an absolutely mega job in that McLaren. And it is so nice to see, you know, different manufacturers on the grid, Tim. You know, it's so common that if you go into like a VRS race, it tends to be, you know, your Mercedes, your BMWs, maybe, you know, if you're lucky, a few Porsches. But now, you know, we've got a McLaren, we've got a Ferrari, we've got an Audi. The only cars we're really missing are the Lamborghini and the Ford. But I think we can sort of excuse the Lamborghinis. It's technically an Audi, and that I do admit is a little bit of fighting talk, but there's not much action. So yeah, what is better, Tim, the Audi or the Lamborghini?
Well, for myself, because I drive the Lamborghini, I'm going to be incredibly biased on this one, Seb, and the Lamborghini. So just into the pits there, Royce. Now, the drivers do have at their disposal 1 fast repair each. Royce electing to, I think, maybe just check out the steering as he pulled away very gingerly there on the accelerator. I'm trying to have a little look across at his steering wheel, and looks like it's pointing straight, so he's used his fast repair there, I would imagine, to get the car straight, and off he goes as here come the, well, there's still nose to tail, those 3, Helvig, Mervang and Isaacson. nothing between them. Well, I say nothing. It's actually 6 seconds between each of the cars, so 1.2 seconds now. Covering the three of them, they've just settled down into this race, Seb, and just it seems to be a bit more orderly. I mean, we're a third of the way through, 20 minutes completed out of the hour. This is where the long game mentality comes into play.
Certainly is. You know, any of the drivers that have driven GT3s, you know, would have tended to at least done a few endurance events, and anybody that has done endurance events sort of knows the importance of this sort of middle part of the stint where you just lap away, gain consistency, sort of manage your tyres, manage your fuel as well. That's going to be critical as we sort of head into the final minutes of this race. Who can save enough fuel? You know, it is possible to do an hour on a tank in a GT3 car, but it's not as easy as it used to be. You know, new BOP limits, new sort of directives by iRacing have made it a little bit more challenging to save fuel, and a little bit, you just consume a little bit more per lap. So yeah, it's all about lapping away, learning, where your competitor is a little bit quicker than you, maybe a little bit slower than you, learning their strengths and weaknesses, and you sort of build up this mental picture that you can use to attack them, when we get into the latter parts of the races. It's so important to, just lap away. And, when you hear sort of endurance drivers talk about consistency and consistency matters, this is why it matters so much. And it's super hard to actually run this close together with a pack of cars. You're always, constantly analysing where they are on track, where they're braking, to make sure you don't sort of end up sort of having a silly accident where you sort of rear end them. So it's really mentally draining if you're driving in a pack sort of 2 or 3 cars big. So yeah, it's difficult for these drivers. They're making it look super easy, as is the way. Is that a Mercedes in the background? I thought it was Roy's in the Mercedes. I saw him enter turn 1, Tim, but I don't necessarily think I saw him exit T1, as we have our first pitter. That's Max Berven, and I don't think he's got any sort of major damage to him, so this just looks like a plain old fuel stop.
It definitely does do, indeed. And Seb, you're talking about, obviously, being consistent and making sure that you're being methodical around here, but also that challenge of maybe trying to fuel save. But do you know what could potentially help the drivers in terms of having great pace, but also having that ability to fuel save at the same time? What's that, Tim? Well, I think it's time for another plug, isn't it? It's Apex Racing Academy. We've won their weekly group coaching sessions. I know our fellow co-commentator here at Apex Racing TV, Austin Knight, has taken a few of them. He's first the Hyundai Veloster TCR, so something a little bit different to the machinery we've got on display here today, but we've seen absolutely epic results for it. They also have track guides, integration with a VRS Virtual Racing School, setups across their 29 data packs, and much, much more. And as we see, wow, look at the gap that Mervang has managed to close up onto Helvig. If he's any closer, Seb, he practically sat in the front passenger seat. But it's Isaacson who's making the move, and maybe a little bit of working together here by the Mercedes. And Isaacson, while trying to skip past the pair of them, just about gets it stopped in time. You can see the car squirming and moving around as it's throwing out the perennial anchor there to get past Mervang, but couldn't quite squeeze past Helvig, just ran out of road. I'll tell you what, if we weren't running with the first chicane here at Monza, that would have been done and dusted, that move, but head on to the brakes, and they came through Curva Grande as well, had to settle into third, back up into the podium positions, the IGL Coatings driver Isaacson, a disposal of Mervang, but Helvig, I'll tell you what, just since he took control, he's just been metronomic, hasn't he? And I do wonder, Seb, especially seeing the way that those Mercedes are closing up on the straights, do you think maybe he's running a little bit more wing to be incredibly confident through the corners? Because he seems to be pulling away from everyone. I know the BMW incredibly strong from the corners, over the curves. We spoke about that already. He's just seeing it there, demonstrating beautifully around Ascari. But I do have to wonder if he's maybe running slightly a little bit more wing, maybe, compared to the Mercedes.
I'd be surprised. You tend to run these GT3 GT3s sort of at two extremes. You either run them at no wing, you know, sort of your Monza level spec, or your sort of high downforce, which tends to work for most other tracks. So I'd be surprised if Helvig decided that he wanted a little bit more wing around here. I think it's just the difference between, you know, the two cars, and that's why we love GT3 racing, because you get the differences.
I don't know if you caught that, but was that a bit of bump drafting going on there by Isaacson on Helvig?
I wouldn't be surprised, actually. These two, actually these three have tend to been working together, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of bump drafting going on. It tends to happen more in road racing than you'd necessarily like to think about, really. It's a, you know, a tactic that many of the top drivers will use it at some point, you know, whether it's just a, you know, almost as a defensive strategy, actually. If you think about it from Isaacson's, you know, position, he really wants Helvig just to go a little bit quicker to break that gap from Mervang, you know, so Mervang can actually, you know, sort of, you know, so Isaacson has sort of free run at Helvig at least for a few laps. So yeah, I think Isaacson certainly is playing the long game here at the moment, Tim. But yeah, very quickly going back to the, you know, the differences between the two cars. The other thing is that the Mercedes, you know, as I mentioned earlier, can run just plain old lower rear wing than any of the other GT3s. It's super quick on a straight line. You know, around Watkins Glen, me and my team, we took the Mercedes out for a spin, and we were running anywhere between 3 and 6 kilometers an hour faster on the straights than any other non-Mercedes car. So if you tune it right, you can have some insane top speed, and I think we're just plain seeing that at the moment.
It's just watching there. I tell you what, Bevan, just looking at the lap times, it was starting to get a bit closer to locks, and the gap on the last lap has extended out by 3 tenths. Currently 4 seconds between the pair of them. Now, we've spoken obviously about the Mercedes, BMW, the Ferrari, and I think it's time we shine a bit of a light on the Audi. Well, hold on tight, because we're going to have a change here. Isaacson on the brakes into Rettifilio, and just about gets it stopped in time. Helvig tucks in behind him, and Isaacson, after losing those 2 places, all those laps ago, now takes charge at the front of this group.
Been about 10 laps in the making for Niels-Erik Isaacson. Great move though. Almost left Helvig out to dry a little bit, delayed his turn in ever so slightly just to compromise Helvig and make sure that he couldn't sort of get the switchback through the first chicane. Very Sebastian Vettel-esque, as we see Ruud now in the pits. Our only Ferrari driver deciding that this is his time to come into the pits and get a top-up of fuel. And I doubt there'll be much fuel going into that car, or maybe the drivers have decided to go for more of a 50-50 split, you know, 50% at the start, 50% sort of topping up to go to the end. But I'd hazard a guess that some of these drivers on the grid will be trying to extend for a full hour, because, you know, not having to go into the pits, not having to lose those sort of 30-some seconds will be so beneficial to your overall race pace.
Let's just see Ruud into the pits there.
Sorry, Tim, is that a tyre change? Did you see the car jump up on its jacks?
Well spotted, Seb. No, I hadn't, and just got a quick peek there behind the wall before the camera angle changed slightly for myself. But there you go. It is up in the air, that car. There we go. Managed to just about see it. There you go. As it drops down off the jacks, and off he goes. Wow, that's brave, but could it be inspired, actually, potentially? I mean, we've got relatively low track temperatures. It's something we haven't really touched on here today. So ambient temperature is 23 degrees Celsius. Track temperature, 29 degrees Celsius. Now, in terms of what that means for the drivers, the lower the track temperature, Seb, it tends to be there's a bit more grip. It doesn't feel so oily and so greasy compared to a really high temperature, say up in the high 40s or even into the 50s.
Yeah, it's so critical, the track temperature, and even a little change, you know, a few degrees can make such a difference to the grip and how the car behaves. But a general rule of thumb is that, you know, simply the lower the track temperature, the quicker you'll ultimately go. There's just more of a difference between, you know, how hot the tyres can get and how sort of hot the surface is in general. As we see, Rude stop once again. And I'm not sure, Tim, you know, if this is a little bit of a mistake here from our Ferrari driver, or as you said, is this a little bit of an inspired choice? Just, you know, taking, you know, those tyres and gambling. You know, I wouldn't really expect the tyres to be too much of an issue. I've known, you know, some drivers do upwards of 4 hours on a set of tyres and still have sort of relatively some pace at the end of it. But then, you know, if you do get into this tyre drop-off, if you do hit, you know, as what's so commonly known as the cliff, where the tyres simply just run out of grip, you can lose so much time that it is worth, you know, coming into the pitch, changing the tyres. So, yeah, I think Rude's gone for an interesting strategy here, and I hope for his sake that it pays off for him.
Seeing the group of 3 there, and Isaacson starting to pull away now from Halvik and Maivang. He's been watching the gap grow to Sidebarn, who've practically not mentioned as onto the brakes. It's a Resfilo just checks up there. Maivang thinks twice about it. He can see the way that Isaacson is starting to open up that gap to Halvik, and it's such a disconcerting sight. And correct me if I'm wrong, Seb, at least I tend to find that when I watch, you know, I'm stuck behind someone who maybe I feel that I'm quicker than, especially in certain parts of the circuits, you know, the BAP and different styles of the cars. It really demonstrates that way. You're definitely quicker in certain parts of the circuit against a different manufacturer of car, and you start to overdrive the car, overwork the tyres a bit more, where you're pushing so hard because you want to get past the car in front of you to get then after, or at least stay in touch with the car that's, you know, 2 cars ahead of you that you can watch starting to get away. So we'll touch on that 0.1 moment, Seb, the McLaren there of Berven, Max Berven to be precise, just having a bit of a look on the Audi of Loxon. And let's see what happens on the run down to turn 1. They come across the start-finish rate. The Audi of Loxon goes defensive. Berven are going to have his work cut out. Well, I say he's going to have his work cut out, but Loxon maybe even just lifting a little bit there to allow the McLaren through with its notorious spit of flames out of the rear of the car, as if to say, waving as if to say, thanks very much, I'm off, see ya. And already opening up a gap of 0.8 of a second.
Yeah, it's stunning grip that McLaren had through the first chicane, and anybody that's keen-eyed would have spotted that Niels-Erik Isaacson and Stefan Helvang actually, technically, is Isaacson very wide on the exit of turn 1. That's going to give a big opportunity to the BMW driver.
He's got to slow down. Is he going to slow down? Because he jinxed left very hard, and he seemed to let Helvig through incredibly easily, and he's pulled left again.
He has, yeah, he has, because he's lifting off towards the braking zone, unless that's some sort of fuel-saving strategy. It does look like, you're right, Isaacson did pick up a slowdown. Very easy to do through the first chicane here at Monza, but you know, you wouldn't be expecting Isaacson, you know, driving at this level to be making those sorts of mistakes, and that's once again put Isaacson on the back foot, and he's got it all to do again.
Well, we know the BMW, we've seen it so many times, quick through these couple of sectors, and already starting to pull a little bit of fresh air, but Isaacson remaining on the coattails of Helvik. As we come on to the race into Ascari, just watch the BMW launch itself across the curbs in such an aggressive manner compared to the 2 Mercedes that are following behind of Isaacson and Mervang. And now the run down to the final turn. But surely both the Mercedes drivers are going to be in good position, but Isaacson doesn't even wait for it. Slits up the inside, runs in a bit deep. He's going to just about get it turned in time and back up into second, but straight into the pits. Well, that nearly killed Halvig and Mervang, completely unawares there as he's into the pits. And we've got a battle or a race on down to turn 1 between Halvig and Mervang, but Mervang just elects to just tuck back in once again by being alongside Halvig.
Yeah, Isaacson sort of breaking the sort of driver's code there. You don't tend to see an overtake sort of into the final corner for then you to just pull off into the pit lane. And, you know, as I mentioned, both Isaacson and Helvek were going so close to the pit entry that they were actually triggering, you know, our graphics to think that they were actually coming into the pit. So it's sort of the racing line around here. So Isaacson could have caused an absolutely almighty accident. And I don't quite understand, Tim, how they didn't end up, you know, flying in the air. So, yeah, surprised that Isaacson has come into the pits. I thought that one of the drivers at least would try and go to the end, but clearly it is looking like it is going to be a one-stop race. But Isaacson already now out of the pit, so it'll be interesting to see, does Stefan Helvik, does Odin Majervank now need to come into the pits? Have they planned on coming into the pits, or do they think they can get away without having to stop? Really interesting strategy playing itself out here at round 1 of the RacingLab GT3 Summer Series. Helvik, though, a little bit wide through the first part of the Ascari chicane. That's going to allow the Mercedes to catch up now through the exit of Ascari, down the back straight towards the Parabolica. And I think I'm with you, Tim. It always has to be the Parabolica. We can't call it the Alboreto curve. It is, and it will always be the Parabolica corner. And looks like Helvik's absolutely nailing the Parabolica corner at the moment.
Let's see him pull in. Yes, oh, Mervang, not 100% sure what Helvik was going to do there. There's the BMW into the pits now. Where is Isaacson? That is the question. Where is he going to come out into relation? Has he had an absolute killer outlap? Currently in 5th behind Tor Anders Breven in the Porsche. He's had a nice quiet late. He's into the pits. It's Breven. Torsander of the T Bervens in the race. Max obviously in 6th place in the McLaren. But there is Isaacson. And all this is going to be tight. It's going to be close. Who's going to be last to the late breakers? Wow. Helvik just emerges out the other side in front of Isaacson. But, and this is the big but, Isaacson already up to speed. And it's going to be close. But I think Helvik's got this one, Seb.
And it was all done, Tim, in the 1st and 2nd sectors for Helvik. He had an absolutely rapid, you know, start to the lap. We saw him make that little bit of a mistake in the Ascari chicane, but, you know, Helvik was just super rapid. You know, he had the lower fuel on board, which, you know, does allow you to go quicker. And that's, you know, where you tend to gain most of your time from, you know, in the later portions of your stint is just from the fuel burning off. So, you know, Helvik went for that lap longer, had one lap longer on that low fuel, and that's allowed him to overcut Isaacson. Isaacson now once again with it all to do. He's already managed to find his way past that BMW twice so far today, and he's going to have to make it 3 times if he wants that 2nd place on the podium. But, you know, Majervank at the moment still doesn't feel the need to come into the pits. Actually sets the fastest lap of the race. Personal best for him, I do apologise, on the last lap for good measure. So Majervank fairly happy out there.
I do think he was maybe just fuel saving. He was happy to sit at the back of, well, they were a trio, Mervang, Isaacson and Helvik, who latter two just still scrapping it away. Over 3rd place, obviously Mervang well up the road, but yet to stop. And well, these two are clever about it, Seb. They could, you know, bump draft, push each other along to make sure that after the pit stops, round of pit stops are completed, they are well ahead of Mervang.
Yeah, and that's sort of when you need, you know, you were talking about the importance of the SDK software. It's just that ability to have an overview of where everybody is out on track. Because, you know, if you're in the car, you might not actually be aware that, you know, Mervang hasn't actually come into the pits yet. And so you need that bigger picture to, you know, to make that decision of, oh, actually, we shouldn't really be fighting at the moment. If we sort of work together, do what you said, Tim, bump draft, you know, don't cost each other any time. Just, you know, lap away and sort of get closer to Mervang. And yeah, you know, when he makes his pit stop, if he indeed does make a pit stop, you know, then you will be further behind, and then you two can, you know, have a big battle, as we see our leader Stein Bratton out in the lead. And we haven't really seen much of him, Tim, because there's no real reason or need to see him. He's just absolutely flying at 1 minute 46.9. That's the fastest lap of the race, although we got an off track somewhere on that lap, so it's not going to count for anything apart from a little bit of bragging rights. And yeah, Majervank almost a second off the pace. Just goes to show, I mean, the fact that Steinbraten is just in a league of his own, Tim, he almost could be in, like, if there was a GT2 category, I think we might be suspecting that his car might be a GT2 car, because he's that quick.
He is indeed. He is holding on to, as you mentioned, the fastest lap of the race, 147.2. As close as that is Nils-Erik Isaksson with a 147.27, so 700ths of a second slower. But let's not forget, Isaksson has had the benefit of slipstream, whereas Steinbraten has been ploughing his own furrow here at Monza. And we did start to talk about, obviously the benefits of some of the other cars, their strengths and weaknesses, and just seeing the Audi there, Seb. It's when we sort of started on the conversation, then it all kicked off. The Audi, it's very, very pointy in the way it turns in. Very, very lively. Now, not something you want with, like, long, swooping corners like here. However, at tracks like Imola, for example, that we're heading to later in the season, really, really handy, especially at sections like Acqua Minerale, and where you can utilise the car to, and that's its ability to be really pointy, to turn the car in and make corners that maybe some other drivers would have to really slow the car up to make sure they get round.
I absolutely adore the Audi. I mean, I've driven the Lamborghini more in recent times, but the Audi holds a very special place in my heart. You rightly point out, Tim, it's got some of the best turn-in on, in the GT3 field. It's super agile, maybe a little bit too agile at times. It's notoriously difficult over the bumps. You really have to tune out its, almost its need to sort of bounce over the curves and, get a little bit of oversteer as you sort of rebound back onto the track. The suspension is very unique to the Audi, but if you can master it, if you understand how the suspension works on the Audi, you can go absolutely rapid in the Audi. It's so good. And yeah, it's one of the oldest GT3s on the service, but, it's almost an old faithful, it was always a battle, back in sort of, a few years ago, it was between the Audi and the Mercedes, the old Mercedes at the time, and it was, whether you want the Audi, the lively, the more interesting car to drive, but the potentially more deadly car, or do you want the sort of the calmer sort of steadiness of the Mercedes? And, the Audi was such a popular car, and, it's coming through a resurgence at the moment. And of course, you can't deny that that V10 sounds absolutely incredible. One of the best sounding cars on the GT3 grid, and Luxon at the moment using that V10 to its full effect down the back straight through the Ascari chicane. And note how Luxon has to avoid those yellow and black curves. And that's what I was saying to him, you can be quick, and the Audi's a quick car, but you cannot go near those curves unless you are absolutely sure that you tune the suspension absolutely right. Otherwise, you'll bounce off them and you will end up in the wall, and you'll have a very silly accident, or a very Audi accident, as it used to be called.
There is a bit of a phrase, isn't the Audi doing Audi things, and, well, currently occupying 7th place. One lap down, but has pitted. Well, top two, Steinbraten and Mervang yet to pit here at Monza. We are approaching the last quarter of the race. So positions up for grabs. Closest battle we've got, of course, is, well, they have been pretty much all race long. It's Helvig and Isaksson. There's Mervang. And, well, there they are, basically holding hands. They are that close and side by side yet again. And we're going to see Isaksson, well, I was going to say, emerge out victorious and in front by turn one. Well, he practically got just across the start of the finish line and was already completed the move there, Seb. But Isaksson not hanging around and really demonstrating the straight line speed of that Mercedes.
Yeah, not quite sure while Helvig felt the need to, drive sort of almost on the outside of the track. You saw Isaksson sort of cut the beam, go as close as he could to the pit wall, basically the shortest, distance between Parabolica and the start-finish line, and Helvig just basically had to drive more meters than Isaksson, and that cost him in the end. So, yeah, I think Helvig will be ruining that little mistake there, because it has allowed the Mercedes past, and, judging by the previous pace that we saw from Isaksson, he is a little bit quicker then. Helvig in the BMW, so Helvig needed to do everything in his power to stop Isaacson getting past him, but you know, now I think the floodgates have opened, as it were, and Isaacson's just going to romp away with this one. But you know, we've been surprised before, and we always are, or always willing to be surprised again. And actually, you know, Isaacson, although he's had the pace, hasn't necessarily had the consistency of the BMW driver. So we'll wait and see. But I'm kind of interesting that, you know, Steinbraten and Meyervang both have not come into the pits yet, Tim, and I can kind of understand our race leader not needing to come into the pits. He's had, you know, no real competition from, you know, any of the drivers out on track as he takes a whack load of curb through the second chicane, almost airborne. That was the level of curb that he took, but clearly working for him, still setting, you know, the fastest laps of the race. But I just wonder, you know, why Meyervang hasn't come into the pits. Can he go to the end, or is this just a really different strategy from our second Mercedes driver?
It's an intriguing one. We've only got 16 minutes left on the clock to find out, Seb, so not long to wait at all. And yeah, I mean, Meyervang, he was sat in the slipstream of the two cars in front of them for so many laps, obviously being those two cars being Helvig and Isaacson, as we can remember so well. We've seen so much of them during the race. But in terms of Steinbraten, he's not had that luxury, which makes me wonder, yes, Meyervang probably can make it home to the end on the fuel that he's got. It might be tight, but Steinbraten, surely he's got to stop. I mean, he's got the lovely luxury of a massive 22-second advantage, and so it's another new personal best and the fastest lap of the race at 1:47, dead there for Steinbraten. And surely, with that sort of pace step, yes, I know the car's becoming lighter and lighter as the fuel has burnt off, but still, he's got to come in for a stop at some point, surely, hasn't he?
The thing is that once you get into such a rhythm with the car that it's clear that Steinbraten is in, you can start to fuel save without losing so much time if you master the lifting coast, you know. What I mean by that is, instead of sort of applying the brakes to, say, the 100-meter board, you lift off around the 150 board, allow the car naturally to slow down, and you can take such great apex speed into the corner, and you can sort of almost gain the time that you've lost by lifting and coasting. So I'm not surprised that Steinbraten's pace is super quick, while, you know, if he is indeed fuel saving. I'd love to sort of grab an onboard with him to see if that is in fact what's going on. But yeah, if you sort of get in the rhythm, you can fuel save so much without, you know, losing that much time. As we ride on board now, have a little bit of a listen. He comes into the Ascari chicane, and that doesn't sound to me like he's doing any lifting and coasting. Braked it just before the 100-meter board. That's where you normally expect a GT3 to be braking. So yeah, I think the more I think about it, Tim, the more I'm with you. Is I think Steinbraten is at some point going to have to come into the pits, but I mean, he's got such a lead at the moment that surely he can come into the pit, stop, maybe even having a quick cup of tea and get out, still, all while being still in the lead.
Just holding, well, waiting with bated breath then to see if Steinbraten was going to dip into the pits. He decides not to. Goes quicker again on 1:46.9, making hay. Well, the sun is shining here in Italy. It's Steinbraten, the Mercedes GT AMG. That's the iconic car since it was released, and the successor to the Mercedes SLS. And some may say, much better looking car. Certainly more conventional doors compared to the gull wings that you had on the SLS. Absolutely massive bonnet that both cars possess. There's line phosphate where you almost sit just in front of the rear wheels. It's a long way back to the front of the car, but a classic styling of a coupe and a Grand Tourer these hold is an absolutely epic combination. That's a new personal best, apologies there, for Helvig at 1:47.3. Not enough to quite be in range to mount an attack on Isaacson, but still just give it 10 minutes left on the clock, and still plenty of opportunities at 1:46. We've got about 5 laps left here remaining, possibly 6 at Monza in round 1. So possesses plenty of overtaking opportunities, as Monza does on each lap with abundance. And Harvick can find himself back onto the podium positions, but you know, for a while, Isaacson is going to be holding on for dear life. Now he can smell a podium, he can see it, he's currently occupying it. That's the side of Nervang. If he needs to stop, or if he can eke out the fuel to make this home on one tank, it's going to be a close call between the pair of them. Let's head underneath the oval there. Historic part of the circuit. They used to run that. Oh, Helvig! Wow, just holds on there. Practically sideways out of Ascari. Just about saves it. That was close. It was dicing with death there for Helvig. I'm not too sure how he managed to hold on to that one, but he's going to be compromised because he's going to have lost time to Isaacson as they come across the line. It's in fact 9/10 of a second is the time that he's lost.
Yeah, and for good measure, Helvig had another sort of dose of oversteer through the parabolica. Just his tyre simply just super hot from that, you know, that mega slide out of the Ascari chicane. And you know, equally bad news for Helvig as Isaacson set his personal best fastest lap on that last time as well. So while Helvig was having problems, Isaacson had found the pace he needed. But you have to start to wonder, with about 8.5 minutes to go, Tim, are we going to see Maivang come into the pits? And I'm kind of doubting it. I think at this point, if you did need to come into the pits, you would have, you know, done it by now. So, you know, is Maivang, just by playing the long game here, going to come out with an, you know, an amazing second place? Only time will tell, of course, is Isaacson there making it past the Mercedes. I think that's Roy's, and I think that's a lap down. So more of a, you know, a lapping manoeuvre than an overtaking manoeuvre, but still always tricky, especially with that Audi. You don't really want to be off the racing line coming into a high-speed corner, which the Ascari chicane most definitely is, but Noxon handling that very well. Well, I say he's handling it very well. I doubt his internet handling it as well as he would have liked, but gets away with that little blink and going to come across the line. 7th place for the Audi driver. Great job by him. He's up some 4 positions from where he started. Absolutely a superb job by him. And you see, it was Rude, wasn't it, Tim, that came into the pits and took the tyres. He's about 22 seconds off the back of the Audi driver, but I don't really see him catching up too much. It's about 0.5 of a second on that last lap. So unless Luxon makes any form of major mistake, I think Rude's gamble of taking those tyres is not going to pay off for him.
You do have to wonder if it was a mistake where he forgot to deselect taking tyres. It's might be able to find out post-race, and we'll keep today with that one. And 7 minutes left on the clock. Steinbrown leads from Mervang. Isaacson in the last podium position. Currently a lockout for Mercedes here in round 1. Helvig. He's closing right up yet again to Isaacson, that BMW. Berven in the Porsche in 5th with Max Berven in the McLaren in 6th place. The Audi, to keep it going, there's a consistency of different manufacturers.
Steinbratton in the pits. Sorry, Tim. Steinbratton's in the pits.
Great spot there, Seb. Absolutely epic. And about ran it in incredibly deep. In fact, it must have been on fumes. And surely, we're going to see Mervang come in now. Surely. There we go. Throwing out the anchor. Just about gets it stopped in time. The white line with obviously the 2 yellow cones either side there, denoting where the pit limiter line starts. Just practically bumbling along right now. Back in the day, these pit lanes used to have a speed limit brought in for safety reasons, and now it's you have to wonder, it almost seems alien. But here they come. I tell you what, Mervang, this is going to be close, and I think he could lose 2 places here to Isaacson and Halvik. Where is he? No, there he is out in front, but they're closing down hard. And I think Isaacson's going to get Mervang onto the brakes. It's going to be tight. They're going to squeeze in together. And Halvik just closes right up onto the back of them. Ding, ding, Seb. Round 2. But this fight's only going to last 5 minutes. That is all we have left here at Monza. Mervang leads from Isaacson, who leads from Halvik. These 3 have been all over each other pretty much all race, despite differing pit strategies from all 3 of them. They've emerged out yet again, nose to tail. But Mervang actually has now jumped ahead of Isaacson and Halvik, because when they came into they started their cycle of pit stops, Isaacson came first. He just managed to get slipped past Halvik. And Mervang was obviously in the rear of this group. He's now at the front, taking charge. He needs to charge hard to bring this one home here.
Yeah, once again, Isaacson seen a place slip away from him as another driver exits the pits. Even this time, Mervang doing an absolutely great job, and I thought he was going to sort of outbrake himself, get a little bit lost in the moment and outbrake himself into turn 1. But now all of the pressure that he hasn't really felt for the last, 15 or so laps comes back to him instantly. He's got to be on it. He's got to make sure that he nails every single braking zone, gets on the power as soon as possible, but not too soon. He doesn't want to engage his traction control systems. That's just going to lose you time, and time is so important. Isaacson with an absolutely mega run through the parabolica as we head down the straight towards the first chicane. Mervang feels the need to go defensive, pulls to the inside, but thinks about it, and Isaacson pulls to the inside now. They're side by side into the braking zone. Isaacson's got the inside line. They've touched!
Contact. Oh, and Halvik as well makes contact with a pair of them. Isaacson has to flick the car back around. He's lost our big sail, but the BMW emerges out the other side in front. Mervang down to 3rd, Isaacson down to 4th. And well, I need to see this replay again, because I tell you what, it all happened in the blink of an eye. We look down from the chopper. There goes Isaacson up the inside, squeezes him, and there you go. There's the contact. And a nudge again then from Halvik on Isaacson, who was using the grass, trying to flick the car around, but just ended up drifting around there on the inside of turn 1. I knew it would end spicy, Seb, but I didn't think it was going to quite end like that one.
No,
Isaacson into the pits. I think that's him retired.
That is him retired, whether that's through frustration or damage, or maybe a little bit of both, I am unsure. But Isaacson, yeah, and being in 8th place and not score as many points as he could have done. And I have to say that by the the look of that replay, Mervang has got to take quite a lot of responsibility for that accident. I just don't think he gave Isaacson enough space on the inside. Famously, Fernando Alonso, that famous radio call, all of the time, you have to leave the space. And I think that was the case of not doing that. But of course, different drivers, different opinions, and I'm sure the stewards will be having a look at that after the race. But Mervang now trying to reclaim what he thinks is his. He wants that 2nd place back, and what stands in between him and that is a certain Stefan Helvik, who has been absolutely rapid and relentless this whole race. Maybe hasn't necessarily had the ultimate pace of the Mercedes, but has had the consistency, had the wherewithal to know where to place his car, and every time there's some drama up ahead of him, he just absolutely capitalizes on it, and he's reaping the rewards so far. But this battle is far from over. Ruud and Lokson, I was just having a look, and I think they've swapped position somewhere. So Ruud, after taking those tyres, whether that's been because Lokson has made a mistake, but Ruud now up to 6th place. So yeah, that sort of strategy that we were saying, and this is actually what happened to Lokson. So I don't think it's necessarily so much of a tyre strategy as a plain old mistake, and that's simply a little bit too wide on the exit there, Tim. We've all done it. We've seen it actually earlier on in the race, and now you have to do the long, slow little chicane in the middle, or you can do that and just ignore the lives of some cones and maybe even take one as a Fred.
Wow. Despite the contact, it's closed up once again. And when these two come across the line, they're going to take the white flag. 1 lap left remaining. 1 set of opportunities available for Mervang to get his way past Helvik. And I'll tell you what, Isaacson, he's lost another place because Royce was 2 laps down. There's now obviously where he's kept going. He has passed his fellow Mercedes drivers, so Isaacson's going to finish 9th after retiring the car. But here we go for one final time. And this is going to be so close. We're going to see a repeat of what we saw only 2 laps ago at turn 1. Hard onto the brakes. Mervang just holds back a little bit, reserving his chance. But this is where it gets tricky because we've seen all race long how quick Helvik is through this next few sectors, across the curbs, across the bump. So we head round Curva Grande and onto the brakes into De La Rogia. And this is where the BMW is really going to come to light. They're coming up to a back marker. That's Max Burven. No, sorry, that's the number 6 there. That is Royce, who just instantly jumps out of the way, allows these two to keep charging through. These two absolute gladiators dueling it out. They're well down on being able to take the victory. There is Steinbraten, who's just coming round Parabolica, and he is going to take the victory here for the first time this season at Monza in round 1. Congratulations, Ole Steinbraten in the Mercedes GT AMG. But here they come, and well, if Helvik, I think he might have done enough here, Seb, to hold on to this one. It's going to take something big, brave from Mervang, and maybe a little bit desperate into Parabolica, unless Helvik gets a poor run out of here. He is going to pick up second, and they both run a little bit wide there, trying to push and carry as much momentum as possible. But there you go, across the finish line, and Helvik takes that second place. Mervang rounding out the podium here.
Yeah, the gap between second and third separated by less than 0.2 of a second after an hour of racing. Absolutely amazing job by both of those drivers. Tor Anders Bevan all the way down, or all the way back, should I say. You know, not even at the Ascari chicane. Just goes to show the pace of our top 3. But of course, you know, we had that incident on lap 1, which sort of accelerated the separation of the field. So I don't think this is a true representation of Bevan's pace, but he's going to come across the line for an absolutely outstanding 4th place in his Porsche 911 GT3, 4 places from where he started, being quiet, and I think one of the only cars, Tim, to be relatively clean. I don't tend to see much of a scrape on that car, and you know that's going to do him some real good. You know, certainly for the repair bills after the race. Bevan's now going to come across the line to take that 4th place, our final driver to cross the finish line. Wow, what a race that was, Tim. It was really interesting. We had so many different strategies. I really enjoyed, you know, both Mervang and Steinbraten going as late as they can. You know, just allowed, you know, us to speculate, and it really spiced up the race in the final few laps.
Let's just run. We'll have a bit of a chat to the drivers afterwards, but let's see for your Class 5 results here from round 1 of the RacingLab Summer GT3 Cup. Steinbraten taking the victory here in the first round of the season. Helvik, BMW coming home in second, but Mervang nipping at his heels. Remember, about 0.2 of a second is all that separated those two. The last 2 podium finishers across the finish line. Towards Ander Bevan, we mentioned him just there in the Porsche 911, comes home in 4th for the last driver on the lead lap. Max Bevan, he was laps in the McLaren in 5th, Alterud in the Ferrari, Loxon in 7th in the Audi, and then it's the Royce, the last runner who finished 2 laps down in Mercedes AMG in 8th place. Let's into the retirements on lap 31. We lost Isaacson, Mordakiv, we lost him on lap 5. And Mats Borgansen, unfortunately, was unable to make it past the end of the first lap. But let's have a little bit of a chat to our Victor here today with was pretty much a flawless drive, and I'm sure he would have wanted it that way. He pulled out in front. We're now joined by Ollie Steinberg, and congratulations. It looked like a bit of a walk in the park for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to get a good gap quite early on with Nils-Erik getting a slowdown, and after that I had good enough pace to be able to just pull away, so quite a nice race for me.
We were speculating in the commentary booth whether you'd done enough to potentially not have to pit. You left it incredibly late. Were you just enjoying hot lapping the car effectively with so little fuel on board?
Yeah, it was fun to just hot lap and see what lap times I can do. But of course, the pit stop was mandatory, so no matter what you do, you had to enter the pit. So it was so there was no point of saving the 5 liters extra. So yeah.
Of course, next time out we head to a very, very different circuit in the form of Red Bull Ring. How do you fancy your chances around there?
I'm not too sure, to be honest, because I've never actually had a proper race on that track. So it's gonna be interesting to see. And also, like, this league was announced, I think, 5 days ago. So I know that for most of the drivers here, they were like lacking a bit of practice. So it will be interesting to see how close the field will be when everyone has the amount of practice they wished for.
Ole, well, I can tell you, for someone who hasn't raced much around Red Bull Ring, I can tell you can absolutely love it around there. Congratulations on the victory. Before we let you go, anyone you want to give a shout out to at all?
Yeah, of course. Thank you to Rano Esport for helping me evolve my driving, and thank you to Stefan for keeping me company in the race. And yeah.
Congratulations, ladies and Victor, here today in the Mercedes GT AMG is Ollie Steinbraten. Right, Seb, I understand you are standing by with our second place driver, Stefan Helvig.
I am indeed, Tim. Let's bring him into the commentary box. Good evening, Stefan. Welcome to the commentary box. A very eventful race from your side. I think you've been in almost every position in the top 4 throughout the race. Did you sort of think that second place was on the cards, or were you surprised to end up finishing second after all that happened at turn 1?
Yeah, my aim for the race was to just save enough fuel to have a fast pit stop and then rely on tactics on getting the highest possible place. And with Odin and Nils-Erik crashing, it was a bit more open to me.
So, we noticed throughout the broadcast that you just seem to have so much more confidence under brakes. Is that, were you running a little bit more downforce, or does simply the BMW just sort of suit being able to brake a little bit later?
I think the BMW brakes are a bit better, and I was running really low down first, I was for sure, but I also stamped the brakes really hard. But most of the people tried to fuel save a bit, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, great job by yourself, and I don't know if you saw the accident or can remember it. Did you sort of feel like it was anybody's fault, or did you sort of just think it was sort of a racing incident and nothing's going to come of it?
No, it was basically a bit of a racing incident and a bit more fault on the other driver, because one was turning in while he saw the other one was on the inside, which kind of escalated the action. He could have easily let him by with such few laps to go and maybe try and held his position. But yeah, I got away with it pretty cleanly.
Yeah, you did, and that sort of seemed to be sort of the way that you ran your race, is just sort of, stay out of trouble, as you said, fuel save, just sort of play the long game, and it really worked out for you in the end. Did you think that you could have had the pace if you weren't sort of stuck behind the other drivers or being involved in these incidents, that you could have taken the fight to the race winner, or did you feel like second was about as best as you could have done today?
Yeah, I was practicing a bit with Ole, and his pace is always on top, so I didn't think I would be able to challenge for the win, but I kind of bottled quali, so I got P4, and my plan was to be really aggressive in the start and try and get up to the P2 spot and hang on Ole, but that didn't work, so I just kind of sat behind and let the other guys go, and Ole got away with a massive gap and won the race by that.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, he sort of managed to open the gap to sort of 10 seconds. I think it was Isaacson made a mistake, and that sort of brought you all together. And from then on, it was certainly a race for second. Well, congratulations on your second place. Before we let you go and celebrate, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to at all on the broadcast?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to Ole, who we practiced a bit before the race, and my mum and dad for helping me with this sick rig that I'm driving on, and RSR Esports, which is my team that I'm driving for.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we wish you all the luck in about a month's time when we head to the Red Bull Ring. And until then, yeah, we'll see you in about a month's time.
Yep, see ya.
Seb, while you were just chatting to Stefan there, I've managed to grab our third place finisher, Odin Mervang, for RPC Esports. Well, that looked like a bit of a tough battle out there. It just never let up between yourself, Stefan Helvig, and of course Nils-Erik Isaacson.
Yeah, it was a tight one at the end. At least it was mid-race. I found it to be quite boring, to be honest. It was a lot of fuel saving, and nobody wanted to go fast because nobody wanted to lose fuel, so we're just stuck in a train, and I didn't want to go ahead and push the air, so I let somebody pass, and it was just boring in the mid, but at the end it's always exciting.
It is indeed, and to take us back through, obviously, what ended up being the sort of race-defining incident at turn 1 towards the end of the race. It was what looked like a cracking piece of strategy from himself. You ran a lot deeper into the pit window compared to your two competitors. Emerged at the front of the train. I mean, it was getting a bit tight into the braking area, and then, a bit of contact was made.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. I was, I don't know, I was hoping I gave enough space to him, and I turned in, and there he was, so I turned into him for sure, but I think there was more space on his side too, so I guess it was a race incident in the end.
Well, it's Stefan who had a grandstand seat for all the action, just beside the pair of you. He was saying exactly the same thing, where he thought there was a bit more of a racing incident. But, I mean, obviously we watched how you... Obviously, just alluded to how you ran a lot deeper into the pit window compared to your competitors. Was that your initial strategy coming into the race, or was that something you changed on the fly?
I didn't have any strategy at all. I was just I was just thinking I was gonna run till there was no more fuel and see what happened. So I just drove and hoped I didn't meet a lot of traffic and whatnot, so I guess it worked all right. I think they pitted early to get the pace up afterwards, so I'm not sure their strategy, but I'm happy with mine. I guess it turned out okay. I feel sorry about Nils-Erik, and I guess Hjelvik was the lucky one in that incident.
Yes, he was definitely the lucky one to emerge out the other side in front of you. But it was an incredibly fraught and tense battle between the three of you for the majority of the race. We're just saying, Red Bull Ring is the next round.
Yep.
Have you had a chance to drive the new Mercedes around there yet?
No, I haven't, and it's a track I don't like in any car. So
do you not like the Red Bull Ring? It's a great little circuit, but
it's boring. I'm sorry, but it's boring.
Wow, I'm sure there'll be there's definitely a controversial opinion there, hey, we all have circuits we love and do incredibly well at, and other ones that we just don't like as much as some people absolutely adore them. It's what makes up the beauty of sim racing and racing in general. Before we let you go, Odin, anyone you want to give a shout out to at all?
It's my team, of course. It's a good bunch, and I enjoy driving with them. I guess I'm going to say driving with them, since it's a simulator, and I just have a good fun with them. So I want to give them a shout out and say thank you for sticking with me, So and my wife, of course, she gotta get her shout out.
Definitely, you can't forget your wife. You will be in trouble otherwise. That's Odin Mervang, who for RPC Esports and the Mercedes GT AMG, who picked up the last podium position here at round 1 at Monza.
Yep.
Well, Seb, it was, well, pretty much a standard affair for Monza. Slipstream, drama, excitement, from the green flag right up until the checkered.
Yeah, that battle, you know, for second, third, and fourth just gave us so much entertainment and enjoyment. And it sounds like, you know, from talking to the drivers that they all enjoyed it as well. Yeah, very Monza-esque. You know, the slipstream and the track lends itself so well to racing, and so does the next track that we go to, you know, the Red Bull Ring. Less sort of a slipstream and more about, you know, pure driving skill and ability, managing to get, you know, better runs out of some tricky hairpins. It's going to be another really interesting race.
It most certainly is indeed, and we'll definitely be looking forward to that one indeed. But, well, if this hasn't been quite enough action for you, coming up on the channel tomorrow evening, myself and Seb will be returning for the Nordic F3 Championship for the final round of the season from the Nürburgring. Slightly delayed after the downtime that iRacing decided to set upon us with a hot fix, which of course is to red flag the, well, halfway through qualifying 2 weeks ago. So we'll be completing off that championship before we begin the perennial motorsport festival of fun that is every weekend here at Apex Racing TV. Friday nights we have the ARL Prototype Championship and then the Radical Racing Challenge. Those are at Motorsports and Virginia International Raceway respectively. Saturday nights we have the Apex Racing Academy, where Seb will be back in the commentary booth for this one, the Formula 4 Round 4 from Interlagos for them, the Aztec Sim GT Challenge from Silverstone, and rounding out the triple header, I'll be back in for Formula Renault 3.5 from the brand new track to iRacing that is Fuji. And then, of course, Sunday night, get more of myself and Seb once again. I'll be on SRF Weekend Warriors. That is an absolute epic series that's full of absolutely massive grids, massive amounts of drama, massive amounts of excitement. Well worth tuning in for that one. And then we've got IGP Fun F3 from Suzuka rounding out the weekend. So many great shows. Make sure you tune into them and drop a like and a subscribe. But, well, like we say, we knew coming into the RacingLab Summer GT3 Cup round 1 at Monza that we would have plenty of drama, we'd have excitement, there'd be thrill spills, and wow, oh boy, it didn't half deliver. Turn 1, the first lap, we saw drama and incident, and then later in the race, from the incredibly tight race, all the race long we had between Helvig in the BMW, Mervang, and Eric Isaacson in the 2 Mercedes, and unfortunately Isaacson came off the worst, but congratulations for a Grand Chelem victory for Ollie Steinbrachen, qualified on pole, led every lap, had the fastest lap of the race, and of course took the victory here. But I have tipped in Tim Cox with Sebastian Boscher Williams, Sam Fitzpatrick. He's been working his way in the background in the production booth. But we'll see you in a month's time when the RacingLab Summer GT3 Cup returns here on Apex Racing TV, live from the Red Bull Ring.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, You owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.